have 44 people on the session already, so I think we're good to go. Hello, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Finyi Polua Oyeshola, and I would be your host for today. You're welcome to Starting Your MBA Journey. This is the session that is put together by The Narrative Africa, and my partner, Shion Yusuf, would be giving us a brief introduction on what The Narrative Africa is about, the vision, and why we basically started The Narrative Africa. Hi, Shion.
Hi, Finn. Good evening, everyone. So a quick word on The Narrative Africa. It's a platform that aggregates genuine path to success story of successful individuals in Africa across different spheres, different industries, be it from governance to non-profit to for-profit businesses. Yeah, the mindset is we need to change the narrative that has been coming out of Africa. We need to make people see Africa in a better, in a different light. Yeah, and at the same time, we also need to inspire young persons to get to do more, pull more and to create more value. One of the ways to do this is to connect people like myself and yourself to success stories. So when you hear the success story of someone that gone through what you're trying to do now. So maybe you want to be a CEO, and depending on the tech space, and you get to hear the success story of a major that founded into Switch. It feels good to inspire you, and you just get to take up your hustle and list up and follow up. Yeah, so basically we want to inspire people to do more. We want to share the failures, the thought processes that people use in achieving the success. So one of the ways we'll express this is through the MBA series, which will be starting up within the top 10 schools, and it's a series every month, and we're going to be engaging African students that are currently in the school or they have just graduated. So the mindset of this is to inspire like someone like myself, my friends, my colleagues, people that really want to go out there and into the MBA system and learn and get better jobs and create more value, and in their own little way change the African narrative. So that's the whole concept behind Narrative for Africa, and this is the series to get to do more of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. From the chat, I think a lot of people were saying they could not hear Shion properly. Can you, I don't know if you can hear me, so I'll try to maybe give like a 1-minute summary of what he said. It's basically inspiring people. We have people that whatever you want to do in this life, you have someone that's probably done it before. So that's overcoming that fear of, oh, I am not capable, I cannot do this, is what we intend to do, is aggregate stories of various Nigerians, Africans that are doing well in whatever sphere of life that they're working, their business, they're going to school, any level at all. So we just talk to these people, and we hope that by listening to their stories, they're sharing up, down, their challenges, their victories, you're inspired to basically take that step and do better for yourself. That's really what the narrative is about. And we're starting our MBA series, and we're starting with Harvard Business School. We intend to do other top 10 business schools in the world, which would mean reaching out to Nigerians, Africans that are in that school, and having them share their story, just like what we're doing today, of how they got in, what they think we can do as Nigerians to position ourselves better and attract the admissions committee, basically. All right, moving on into the session, we'll be having like a question and answer session where I have some questions. I would ask Dami and Adebodun. They would share their story and they would give their responses, and we would move on from there, basically. But before we start, I would like to put out a disclaimer. So very funny, we had this session, this question in the form that says your expectations, and we got some responses that were quite hilarious. Like, I think some people thought this session was organized by Harvard Business School. So no, it is not. This is by The Narrative Africa, but we are engaging 2 Nigerians that are HBS graduates to share their stories. So if you want to know about waivers or have specific questions for the admissions committee, I would say go to HBS website and reach out to them, right? Okay, so I would unmute Dami and Adebodun now so that we can start. Hi, Dami, can you say hello to everybody and maybe give a brief introduction?
Right. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Narrative Africa team. What you guys are doing is brilliant. I think, we just need more of this effort because Bodu and I will share, I think later on the session, how much more Africans we need at a school like Harvard Business School. But about me, I'm Nigerian, born and raised in Lagos, grew up in Lagos, went to QC, did my undergrad in the US, then moved right back to Lagos after because, I just really wanted to be back home. Worked in finance, started my own organization called Lagos Young Professional Innovation Club, then decided that an MBA was my next path. Then came to Harvard Business School. And I should say, I love that Narrative Africa is talking about success stories, but I will say going to Harvard Business School is not a success in of itself. I think, there's so much more you need to achieve in your life beyond just having that on your resume. So just to caveat that, but it was a great experience and, really looking forward to all the great things and projects I'm trying to do after school and, happy to share more about my experience with everyone. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dami. Adebodun.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adebodun Aina. Just like Dami, I am born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. Went to school there. I think I graduated from Covenant University in Ogun State, read civil engineering. Then I switched towards management consulting to work with McKinsey for 4 years. And then after that, I decided, I think enough was enough. It was time for me to go do my master's. And so I applied. Thankfully got into Harvard Business School. It's been an amazing 2 years here. And after this, I will be moving on to start working with Amazon in the next few weeks. That's me.
Okay, thank you so much. So just to start, you both mentioned that you just decided it was time to go for an MBA. So why an MBA? Why not an MSc? And how did you know that it was time to move on to go for an MBA? So was it like, oh, after 4 years, I want to go for my MBA, or you had like a checklist that you're saying, oh, okay, I want to go for an MBA, I need to do this, this, and this? But like, what was your thought process between when you knew you were going for an MBA and when you actually submitted an application?
Yeah, I'll take that first. So there are 2 things for me. So the first is what time in your career is right to do an MBA, and the second one is why an MBA versus MSc. So I'll answer those separately. So the first one is what time is right. So I had been doing. So I work at FDN Quest. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's an investment bank. I've done that for a bit, then transitioned into private equity at Sahel Capital. Doing investments in food and agriculture. So this was fun. This was all well and good. But at the 5-year mark, what many people don't realize is that after that, you become the expert on whatever it is you've been doing. So it's almost like if you stay in any profession beyond that point, you're almost committing to that profession for somewhat of the long haul. And I should say it doesn't apply to every single person, but this was something that I was very aware of, knowing that, do I want to still be this finance, like private equity, investment banker person for the rest of my career? Is this a career path I want to commit to? And it was clear to me that if I stayed any longer, I would be the PE person. I would be the investment banking person. I just did not want that brand. And I knew that was a good time to change and just take that transition through an MBA. So everybody has what makes sense for them at any point in time. But for me, I did not want to almost commit to like an investor role for the rest of my career. So that's one. And the second path is MBA versus MSc. Let me tell you, like MSc did not even cross my mind because I don't know. I just don't see it as a very strategic. If I'm going to spend money like doing this, well, like why wouldn't I just do an MBA, which every organization knows? Many organizations have like clear recruiting paths for MBAs, and it's just a more known degree than an MS. So that's just for me anyway. So if I'm going to spend money and time doing this, why don't I go for the one that's just way more reputable and will give me more access? So I'll let Bodun say his perspective. Okay, you're on mute too. Uh-oh.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I muted myself as soon as I was done talking, and then to unmute myself, I had to wait for permission. I will just let it be unmuted. Okay, so I think the way people can think about, I'll answer the second question first, which is MBA versus MSc. So I think the way people can think about an MBA degree is in two ways. The first one is you can think about an MBA degree like a rotary. I think in Nigeria we call it roundabout, where you come in at one end and then you move out at one end. And so what that means in plain language is if you are thinking about a career switch, and career switch can be like a function switch, industry switch, whatever switch you're thinking about, probably you're the type where you read, for example, medicine because your parents wanted you to read medicine, but now you want to go ahead and become a businessman or businesswoman. Think about like an MBA as a successful tool to transition out. Other MSc degrees just make you to become more technical in your field. And so if you're not thinking about going that route, an MBA is a better option. The second sort of way I would think about an MBA versus MSc is an MBA is also sort of like a catapult. Think of it as like almost like a springboard that you jump on and then it shoots you up through, what is it called? Through your professional ranks. And so if you're thinking about scaling multiple levels real quick, I would say you should go for an MBA versus an MSc. An MSc only takes you maybe a little bit higher, but an MBA takes you like much higher. And so that's how I'll think about it. For me, when I decided it was time to go for an MBA was because I was thinking about, I was considering moving more, I was considering a shift in sort of like the function I was in. I was trying to move away from general consulting, more specific towards infrastructure consulting, and that's what made me go for an MBA. I felt like it was time that I'd done more of the general stuff. I wanted to go more towards infrastructure, which was what I loved. And around that time, I felt like it was time enough. Rather than getting dragged into what was available, I decided let me define my own path for myself.
Okay. Great responses so far, very enlightening. But just to still further ask a question on that. So how did you both said you knew it was time to move, right? So but before then, did you, how would I put this? Did you start doing something new? So you applied in 2017. So between when you knew you were going to apply and when you actually applied, you started doing something new? Did you started taking new steps that you felt was important in your application or would be very relevant in your application? Then how many schools did you apply to? Was it just HBS or multiple schools?
That's a good question actually, because I remember when I told, so full disclosure, my boss when I was in Sahel Capital is an HBS alum. So in terms of even me thinking through business school, he definitely was instrumental in that process. So when I told him, okay, maybe business school, let's figure it out, then he was like, oh yeah, maybe it's time for you to start like doing things that will help your application. And I was like, really? People do that? Like people actually spend 2 years like doing things to make the application make sense. So I'll say people do that, but honestly, I didn't. I'm not trying to say I'm just badass. I have great things that I'm doing already, but I just felt like, the things I had done would speak for themselves. I don't really have to start creating new things to add to my CV. But not to say people don't do it. I know people who have gone to HBS that like 1 year before applying started doing certain things that they will add to their resume. And having said that, I'll talk a lot more about the application, like what you should do in terms of when you're applying. So let's just leave that question. The second one is how many schools? I only applied to HBS again. That's what I'm saying. My story is slightly different because my decision to do an MBA, everybody has their own path, and you see all kinds of people when you come to HBS. Me and Bodri are just going to be sharing our personal perspectives and maybe some perspectives we are seeing from our friends and people we know. So mine was, I want to do an MBA that will give me the catapult effect, right, that Bodri was describing. And, you know, the best value for my time and money. And so I wasn't truly considering other MBA programs that were kind of okay because I just want to have an MBA degree. I think I was laser sharp focused on, I want to get into Harvard Business School. What do I need to do? So my question was not, I want to be an MBA. What should I do? It was very much, what do I need to do to get into Harvard Business School? So I only applied to Harvard Business School. And to be honest, my schedule that time was super hectic. I did not have time to apply to like 5 different business schools. Like even that Harvard application was tough. So maybe Bodri, I know Bodri did more than one, so he can give you more perspective on that. But mine was, I was laser set on my vision and what I wanted, and I worked hard to make sure I got in. So thank God. But Bodri can talk about other business schools.
Yes, I think like Yorubas will say, Onokan Waja, which means like there are multiple ways to the market, right? Like there are different ways towards achieving the same goal. And so to answer your question, is there anything specific that we did? Yes, there's something specific that we did, but it might not really apply in your own case. And so to explain specifically what I did, I think I had to reflect on sort of like, what is my overall application sort of like story going to say to the application admission board, sorry. And I wanted it to be clear. I wanted to talk about my love for infrastructure and how I want to help develop Africa's infrastructure. And I looked at the things that I'd done. I hadn't worked in infrastructure yet. So like there was not going to be much credibility towards my story. And so when I thought about that, I started engaging myself in like infrastructure related work somehow. Thankfully, I was working with McKinsey then. McKinsey was a very great platform for me to interact with a lot of people who done infrastructure. I was able to like get started on infrastructure projects, like communicate my CV or like my application process towards looking like a candidate that's serious about infrastructure. And so I would talk to everyone out there, people who are looking to start an MBA, to think about like, sort of like, what is the one-line summary that you want your application to tell? And reflect on your life, reflect on your sort of your experiences and your experiences, both educational experience and your job experience. And does it give credibility to that story? If no, I think it's time to start working on it, to start adjusting and fixing it. How many schools did I apply to? To answer that question, okay, I applied to 3 schools. I applied to HBS. You know, not everybody is as smart like Dami, you know. Some of us, like, we have to hustle hard. I applied to HBS, I applied to MIT Sloan, and I applied to Stanford GSB. I think for people thinking about which schools to apply, there are a number of things to consider, right? Like Dami said, number one is sort of like, what is the end goal of this MBA, and which school puts you in that best end goal? And so if your end goal, for example, is going to be something like marketing, like just go to the best business school that is known for marketing, right? Which is not necessarily Harvard Business School, but Harvard Business School teaches you a lot of marketing. But we know Kellogg does a lot of heavy like marketing related stuff. If your end goal is something around like being in Africa and leveraging that network of alumni, like Harvard Business School has the biggest alumni base in Africa. So like you go to that school. That's one, the end goal. 2 is also the brand. What kind of brand do you want to have? 3 is the teaching curriculum and like the teaching methodology. HBS is known for the case method. Do you like that? If not, just go somewhere else. The 3rd is also the culture on the campus, right? Like think about like, will you feel welcome here? It's a lot going from Lagos and coming into the US, and you have to like make new friends, adjust into the community. I know it was a lot for me because I came into the US a week before school started. So it was a lot of shock for me and a lot of shit. So I think like that's one thing you have to also consider. And I think the final thing that I considered was also location. Like, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in cold, wintry Boston, or do you want to be in in the sunshine? What is it called? A state of California. So like it depends on like where you also want to be, or also the location. Like, do you want to be in the US or Europe? I think those are the things that people need to consider as they are deciding on what schools to apply to.
Okay, awesome responses so far. I'm really enjoying myself. So I will move on to the tests, right? So GRE, GMAT tests basically are also part of what is considered in your application, right? And I have heard two narratives about this. I've heard that you have to score really high. Like Harvard's average test score for GMAT is like a 740, so you have to eat like a 740. Worst was I have to do a 710 or a 720, right? And I've also heard the part that, oh, you're Nigerians, you're Africans, a 650 is not so bad, a 690 is not so bad. So my question would be around, how low have you seen in your class and amongst your friends? How low have you seen that got into top schools? And at one point, should I stop trying? So if I've written my second test, I got a 650, I got a 690, should I stop and start focusing on other parts of the application, or I have to hit that 710 or 730?
Right. Huge. By the way, nobody like gets into business school and like talks about, oh, what did you get on your GMAT? Oh, I got 7 something. Like nobody cares. Like once you're in, nobody gives a shit. Apologies for my French. But having said that, though, what is fake news is that you have to get 740, like the median score to be against HBS. It's simply not true. Everybody on this call, you don't have to get 740 against HBS. In fact, there are people who have 790 that have been denied, and they have great resumes. Like they work in the best private equity firms, banking, it's 790 on their GMAT, and they still don't get in. So you don't have to hit any score to get into HBS. Now, HBS is not like every other business school. There are business schools that really care about the GMAT. So you should talk to people who have been to business schools they're applying to understand how they look at the GMAT. But for HBS, I can say for sure, they don't, like the GMAT is not the biggest thing for them. I know people in my class that have 640. I had a 660, and it sucked. It was a terrible score. In fact, I was like, oh my God, like I cannot apply with this kind of horrible score. I just simply did not have time to do anything like study. So let's just put it this way. Don't get a score that's abysmally low. Like don't get like a 400 or a 500 or 550 and think you have a chance. But if you get a decent enough score, like HBS says this to people, like focus on everything else in your application, your recommendation, your essay, those kinds of things, and have a good GMAT score. But people don't believe them. People just think it's just GMAT. So yeah. So the GMAT is important, but it's truly not the most important thing when you're applying to HBS. Now, a Wharton might be different, a Duke might be different, but HBS for sure, yeah, they are pretty flexible with really GMAT. So.
Yeah, I will echo what Dami also said. I remember when I was applying, there was this book I read about like getting into like successful business school. I can send it to you after this call, so you can share with others. It breaks down sort of like the key things that admission boards are looking out for. And one of the key things that admission boards are looking out for is sort of like academic competency. And when I read that book, it helped me understand that there are two ways that the admission board sort of check for academic competency. One is your undergraduate transcript, and then the second is sort of like GMAT. And they know GMAT can be sort of like a fluke. Like you can literally go into a GMAT and not know one thing and come out with 800, just because it's multiple choice. Like your mom might be praying for you that day, and you're just hitting all the right answers, and you just come out with 800. And so like there's no way for HBS to know about that. And I think for a long time now, HBS and some other schools have transitioned away from like being hard coded on like you must get like a 700 towards looking at the entire sort of like application package that you submitted and say, is there, does this person show that they can go through the academic rigor? And then, like, does this person like align with our values and all those kind of things? So to answer your question, essentially, yes, like Dami said, don't get a ridiculous score. I also got a 650 and I got in. And I know my friends who have the same exact profile as I did, who had 700, 750 applying the same time that I did and did not get it. And so I think it's all about like the entire application process. I'm happy to share that book after this call, but I think from like a 650 there on, like if you're not seeing much progress, start trying to focus on the other things that will really move a needle, like your essays, the first thing that they even read before they even go back and look at this person, like, wow, like I'm impressed with this person, right? Your recommendation is the other thing. Like your recommendation cannot be, oh, so and so is like the third best, you know, like you have to like get like really good recommendation that will push you forward and push you over the finish line.
Okay, so I feel super relieved with this response, right? Because I've been like, oh my God, I have to get 700 myself. So thank you so much, and I hope someone out there is also relieved with this new information. So get a very good score, but then also focus on the whole application and not just your test score. So moving on to essays, culture fit, and the interview, basically. So I know that HBS is big on leadership, like super big. So, but what would you say the admissions committee is really looking out for? How should I tell my story when I'm as a Nigerian? I mean, relatable stories we have, oh, I was this president, or I was just a member of this committee, I was SUG president, I'm a leader in my church. So all those African stories, how do we uniquely tell these stories in our essays to paint that we're leaders applying to HBS, as well as we really want to get in?
I can start. I think no sort of like experience is too small or too little. I think one thing that we often take granted is that our, what is it called, church positions, or student leadership positions and things like that. Like if you come to the US, not many people have served in the church, right? Like let me start again. I think two things. It's one, how do you communicate your information? And two, what is the information that you're trying to communicate across, right? Not everybody has the level of experience that you've had. And so it's a matter of like, how do you explain it to them that they even understand it and they're like, okay, this is a really good thing. Like you can really spin your church leadership position as one, a way of you giving back to the community, or two, you could spin it as you doing God's work, or three, you helping like better off your neighbor, like in different ways, right? Now I'm just rambling now. Okay, get yourself together. Sorry. Yes, how do we tell our stories? We have to tell our stories in a concise manner so that people read it and enjoy it. I think the best the best advice I got when I was writing my essay is that you should write the essay as if the person who's going to pick it up has been lifting cement all day and is now jumped into bed after eating hot beans and wants to sleep, or hot amala, sorry, and the person wants to sleep. Now, will the person still be able to like read through your essay? Like, is it that interesting to keep the person awake? Because you never know when your admission person is going to pick up your essay. And so my criteria when I was writing my essay was I looked for friends who had three criteria. One was somebody who helped me test if this was logical. Does it make sense, or is it just bullshit I'm talking about? Excuse my language. The second was more about consistency and flow. So I got a friend who was a nice story writer who helped me sort of like write it in a way that it felt like a story that someone could read and like easily understand, like a good novel. And then the third person that I looked out for was somebody who knew English grammar, because I'm not just that good in English grammar, who can help me dot all my T's and my I's and cross everything. And so I think that's sort of like the way people should think about it. It should be something inspiring, I will also caution that we move away from the cliche stories of I grew up in the village and what's it called? I'm the first person to go to college and things. There's so many ways you can say it, but don't just come out and say it like that. Like move away. Like, again, it's all about how you write. It's all about how you present the information. You can say that without explicitly writing it and still get it. I hope that helps.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. Dami.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. The thing is, I had to learn this when I write about things I've done. And I'm sure every person on this call, you've done something that's notable in your life, in your career, or whatever. When you write about it, you're like, oh, I did this, and this is what happened, and this is why I did it. It's a very straightforward way of writing, of communicating a story that many times you don't understand that to the audience, people who are reading this, they want to, like, it's not just about this. You have to learn to craft a story. Like, storytelling is such an important aspect because they have no other way to tell you. Like, thousands and thousands of applications. Everybody is saying, oh, like, you have to really channel your creative side. It's not just about, I'm a professional. I worked in KPMG. I was a rock star. They gave me all the awards. So therefore I must be in HBS. Like, no, like, write about interesting things you've done in an interesting way. Simple example in my essay, as you know, as I said, I worked in finance and that was great, but I didn't even talk about that in my essay. So my essay was about how I picked up a new hobby, which was sailing, like 2 years before business school. And it was hard. I capsized many times. It was a difficult experience for me, and how that sort of tells a lot about my persona and talks about different parts of my life that, you know, things have not worked out, but I've managed to make it work out. And it was a story about sailing, right? And so my point is that I'm not saying everybody's going to start writing about sailing or maybe sewing or whatever it is you're up to, but think about storytelling and learn storytelling. It doesn't come naturally for many people, for sure, which is why I like Bodun's point of actually reaching out to someone that's good at it and getting them to help you. My sister is a fantastic storyteller. She's a great writer. She really helped me in my essays, and I really owe her for that. So if you're not good at it, like, don't use this time to go and learn a whole new skill. Like, actually leverage people in your network that can help you with doing this. And it will help you stand out if you can truly tell a great story about yourself.
Okay, perfect. Storytelling, learn storytelling, get someone in your network to help you tell your story in a way that is appealing to the committee, basically. And just one more on that. So for HBS, you want to present yourself as a collaborative person, so you're using lots of we did this, or I was part of something that formed this or started this, or you're saying I did this, I'm a self-starter, I co-founded this. So what approach should you take towards your essay?
Oh, I don't know that there's any hard and fast rule on that one for sure. But I do know HBS loves their leaders. Like, they talk about, like, I swear to God, if I had $1 for how many times I hear leadership in HBS, like, I'll be like fucking Jeff Bezos. I apologize for it. But my point is that they love the leadership rhetoric, and don't hold back in your application. Talk about times you've like gone on and done something. It could be anything small. Maybe I say a CS sport. I don't know, but just talk about something you have done that you've led something. It could be at work as well. HBS loves those stories, but I can't say they don't like team stories as well. So I don't know, it's left for your interpretation, but I definitely, with HBS, would tread more towards the leadership stories.
So I think the way the essay question is crafted for HBS application is sort of like a blessing and a curse at the same time, in the sense that there is no prompt. It's just, we've read all these things about you. What else do you want us to know about you? So it's like open-ended. There's no word limit. There's like nothing else to it. It's left to how you craft like your own story yourself. And so I'll give you an example of what a friend shared with me. She shared sort of like her essay with me. And it was almost the same essay that she used for Stanford, she used for HBS, because HBS just is open prompt. Stanford's prompt is, what do you care about the most, or what matters to you the most? And her simple answer was food. And see, this is where like authenticity comes out, like in helping you get into like your top business school. She said she loves food. She talked about how her grandma used food to like bring everyone to the table. How when there's food, everyone is happy. How when people are quarreling, her grandma uses food to like make people reconcile with each other and uses food to like keep in touch with people. And she's missed that culture from her grandma when she came to the US and when she's traveled all across Europe. She can't find African spices. And so what she wants to do is hopefully build a business, almost like the McDonald's that brings African flavors and spices to the rest of the world so that everybody else can share in the joy that her grandma, that she shared with her grandma. And so like thinking about that, that's one way that she used to say she just wants to start her own restaurant business. She didn't go out and write, I want to start my own restaurant business. This is why restaurants ROI is improving. People want to eat food, etc. It's all about story writing. And so like, I don't think there's a hard and fast rule to like, if you use we or I, it's all just personal. And she used the same essay in Stanford and HBS and got into both. I remember like one thing that also helped me was reading other people's essay and like just having a general understanding. I also have like a PDF of successful essays that I can also share with you. I think what I'm just trying to say here is one, there's authenticity in sort of like that brings out the what is it called, the shining element of your essay. And I think two is also about like good story writing.
Okay, makes sense. Super great. I think we're like at 100 participants and most people can join in. So please tell your friends that we're live on Instagram at TheNarrativeAfrica. So if they are not able to join, they can just go on Instagram and follow through. We're really sorry, but thank you so much. Right, okay, so moving on. For the interviews, I know that after your applications, you get invited for an interview. So what's the structure of the interview and what should a person expect? It's probably very different for each person, but we won't mind you sharing how yours went.
Yeah, mine was on Skype, which is not very, like most people don't do that. I don't know, Bodun, was yours on Skype?
Of course, Skype. I didn't have money to
Yeah, so I didn't have money to start flying to the US for a 2-day interview. And second, I just simply didn't have time to do that. So mine was on Skype. Most people don't do Skype, by the way. But the interview, from what I remember, the interview is this 30 minutes, right? You have 2 people in the room. And these people want to like grill you on your resume. From what I understand, they don't ask any question about, like, for example, if I want to go and start my restaurant, as Bodun said, they won't. My understanding is that they don't actually care about what it is you're trying to do with your MBA. They care a lot about, are you the person that when I ask you about what you've done, you can articulately talk about it and you can, communicate that in a way that people can learn from you? Because what they're really testing for is that will you survive in a classroom, in an HBS classroom? So the questions just come like bullet fire for 30 minutes. I was super nervous. But it's all stuff you've done on your resume. So you can actually speak about it. And in fact, most people steal the interview round because they don't ask you like trick questions like, oh, if you had, count what is the multiple of this times this. Like, no, they don't ask those kinds of crazy questions. It's all on what you've done. So my advice for the interview, if you get it, by the way, congratulations. But when you get to that point, really meditate on everything you've done on your resume and be able to talk about it. Like if someone slaps you and wakes you up at 1 a.m., you should be able to talk about it easily. So that's on the interview.
Absolutely. I agree with Dami. I had a rumor once that if you get an interview, you're 50% in. And so what they do is a HBS class is typically, I think, 930. And so they call like ×2 of that size to the interviews. And mostly what happens at the interview stage is they're really impressed with what you've submitted. And they just want to confirm that the same person they've seen on paper is the same person that is going to be in the classroom. Because remember, you can hire someone to write all this up, right? You can hire someone to write your CV, to write your essay and everything. But you cannot hire someone to do your interview for you. And so that's why they have to like double check. The HBS interview is also extremely personal, like Dami said. There's no generic question, it's all about you. And that's why, like Dami said, once you get an interview invite, just do the same thing I did. I read all my application word for word, everything all over again, just to make sure that if I had mistakenly typed something that was wrong there, I don't get caught off guard, and I'm ready. So I read it like over and over, and I was prepared. Now the interview for me was a different experience. Mine was more, a bit more casual, and it was because I employed a strategy, and I'm happy to share. Hopefully HBS does not hear about this, and then they know how to work around it. But what happened was, at the time I was in Ethiopia, and I was nervous about my interview. And someone gave me the idea to send them an email saying I'm in Ethiopia and there's some riots going on, which was true at the time. And when that typically happens, the government like cuts off the internet. And so I sent them an email saying, if you don't see me on Skype, it's because this has possibly happened. Here's my local number, and you can call me and we can still have the interview. Mm-hmm. And so doing that, I already knew that the first question coming into the interview will be, what are you doing in Ethiopia? What's happening? Are you safe? How are things evolving? And so I already knew the answers to that. I already knew the questions that will happen, and I already prepped for those answers. So it helped put me in a relaxed state of mind. And when we started discussing about Ethiopia, like little did we know that 15 minutes had gone by. And so they only had like less than 15 minutes to ask me like a real question about like my application itself. And then they were like, okay, let's look for question now. Tell us about this. What is this? Okay, good. And so like that was my strategy in like relaxing myself, like putting the interview in my own comfort zone. As I know some people are thinking about like, is it better to fly or to do it in person, to do it on Skype? So far, there hasn't been any preference that I've noticed. I've seen a lot of people who've done theirs over Skype and got in. There are a lot of people who've done that in person and have got in. I think the more important thing is, can you communicate the same amount of energy from your paper application to the person that is interviewing you? I think that's it.
Okay, that is super nice. Thank you so much, Dami. Thank you, Adebodun. So moving on to work experience. So for HBS, the average is about 4.7, right? So it's an average. We'll probably have higher and lower. So at what point, so I think you said, Adebodun said he has done 4 years, Dami said 5 years. So should we be targeting around 4 to 5 years before you start considering an MBA, or you just feel like once I'm ready, I want to go get a managerial role, or I want to go to another career or another line? Is that when it's great, or what do you think?
Yeah, so this one is slightly tough to answer because there's no straightforward answer. The reason I say this is it really depends on what you're trying to do after your MBA. So there are people that want to do their MBA and want to start their own business and want to do a startup or whatever. If that's your reason, I don't think there's any experience bandwidth. Like, you don't just do the MBA whenever it makes sense for you if you want to go straight into your business or startup or something like that. However, if you are looking for, working, like getting a managerial position, something you have to remember, many people don't think about this, is that when you do get into the MBA of your dream job, whatever, when you're recruiting for jobs, you're competing with people that have, that's if you have fewer years of experience. You're competing with people that just have way more experience than you for the same job. And many times I have friends who had like 2-3 years of work experience and they were interviewing for the similar jobs with people that had 6-7 years, and it was just very hard for them in those moments. Now, consulting is slightly different, where consulting sort of, I guess, takes everybody in regardless. But there is a consultant, rather a former consultant, so he knows all about that. Consulting is different. They take everybody and their mother. But for most jobs, they really care about what you've done prior to business school. And if you just don't have that many years of experience, it's tough because you are competing with people that, first of all, these are all brilliant people. They go to HBS, right? Second of all, like, you have fewer years of experience. So what I always advise is get at least the average number of work experience that the rest of your class has. Don't go and rush and get your MBA if you're going to be recruiting for the same job as these people, because you just be disadvantaged from the start. Doesn't mean it's impossible, by the way. There are people who still get those jobs because they're just brilliant and amazing people. But I just don't recommend disadvantaging yourself, because I know people that are brilliant. HBS even has this 2+2 program where from university, you apply to HBS. Once you get in, they give you 2 years to work and come back. Those people who really struggle with recruiting, like they struggle when it comes to applying for jobs because all their classmates have 5 years experience. But it doesn't mean every single person is. But I would just recommend try and get as many years of it. Don't go and do like 15 years of experience and be recruiting for the same job as someone that has only 5 years. Try and be as close to the average as possible so that you're just not disadvantaged. Is what I would advise.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I echo what Danny says. Like, I think by definition, almost like the minimum work experience will be 2 years because of the HBS 2+2 program where you apply from college and then you go do your 2 years and you come back. Now, when you're thinking about how many years of experience should you have, I think you should also think about it from your own personal experience, your own personal learning. Like Dami says, like don't go and disadvantage yourself. When you go into the HBS classroom, you're mostly there to learn from the wealth of your classmates. And you're also there to like contribute your own learning to the classroom. And so if you haven't worked enough, like if you've done like barely like 2 years, when people are talking in the room, you almost have nothing to contribute because you're like, I've only done 2 years. I haven't had this problem. Like I haven't had to fire someone. I haven't had to hire someone. Me and my manager, we're just paddies. Like they just give me work to do and I go. Like I haven't had this much problems that people are talking about. And so I can't share, I can't contribute. That's the first disadvantage that you put yourself at. The second is recruiting. Yeah. And then the third is just like connecting with people. Like you have limited like experience, like share about, like bond about. And so I agree with Dami, like trying to get like towards like the average of the class, it's like very good because it means that you guys are like within sort of like the same peer group and you've experienced sort of like the same challenges or different challenges that you're able to like bring to enrich each other's learning.
Okay, nice. Now moving on to recommendations, right? So how should you decide on who should be your referee, who would be able to help you with your application? So I've had a discussion with someone and the person was like, one problem Nigerians working in Nigeria have is getting their referees to understand the impact of the recommendation on your application. So when I'm trying to decide on who should be my referee, should it be someone that has the big status like a partner or a CEO? So what should I look out for in choosing who should be my referee?
Yeah, this one. But did you want to take it first? I have very strong opinions about this.
Yes, I have to. Let me think. First of all, I think your recommendation should complement your story. And it should come from someone who strongly believes in you and the person who is willing to like talk about like how good you are and not hold back. Someone who truly believes in your potential for success. And it should complement your story. So I'll give you an example. I know a friend who applied to HBS and got in several years back. One of our recommenders was her pastor. Right. And so like your recommenders don't always have to be some like in the professional setting. It has to just complement your story. And she was talking about all her social welfare activities and how that's what she's really interested in, like uplifting people from the grassroots into like, if possible, middle income bracket. And so like one of the best person that she could use for a recommendation was a pastor to talk about how she's given back to the community, how she served as a church leader, how she's helped other youths develop, and how she's like hosted like so many career and academic like opportunities and things like that. And so like that's what people have to understand. It's not necessarily from like a professional background. It could also be from an academic background. Think about like your what is it called? Your entire application. If you don't really have a high GMAT score and your undergraduate, transcript is a bit shaky, one thing that you might think about in using to solidify it is to like ask one of your professors from school who strongly believes in you to write the recommendation for you. That could help you carry weight. Like that could help you pad that leg and like push you forward. So like that's how people should think about it. Recommendation is sort of like a reinforcing force behind your application. Second is, I think you should not come for someone who is, should not come from someone who is the same level as you are, right? And also, if it comes from someone who is like too high in the organization, that person better be able to write specific examples in there so that HBS believes that you've worked closely with this person and they know that it's not just you that wrote it for the person and the person just signed it and pushed you through. And so like that's how you have to think about it. I've seen a lot of people who are trying to write recommendation who were like within the same group and are asking me like, I'm not the best person, because like your recommendation has to come from someone who has gone miles ahead of you, who can evaluate you with like other talents that he or she has seen. And can say, okay, you're truly like one of the best and have the like greatest potential for success. And if it's someone that is too high that has not had interaction with you, then they know that you wrote this application yourself. And I think that's it for choosing a recommendation. The last thing I'll say is in the recommendation itself, it should not be generic. It should give specific examples about like things that you've done. So if, for example, the person is praising you for your leadership attributes, it should not just be, oh, Dami is amazing because she's an amazing leader. That's it. No, has to give examples. Example one, this one time Dami did this. I was surprised because of X, Y, Z, and no one in our peer group has done this. Example two, like sometimes the recommendation should even give like 2 examples per, like, what is it called? Criteria that they're praising you on. And that's how I think about recommendation.
Yeah, completely agree. Find someone who is your cheerleader, someone that like when they can carry your matter on their head. And I know like people are like, oh, it must be my boss. Like I was working at the time when I was applying to HBS, I was working for an HBS alum. In fact, that person is the person who spoke at HBS's commencement ceremony this year, very notable individual. But I didn't use him for my he wasn't my recommender, not because he's my friend, but just I hadn't worked with him enough time that I could say this person was my biggest cheerleader. So I used my former boss, in fact. So it doesn't have to be an HBS alum. So that's fake news. You don't need an HBS alum to write your recommendation. But what you do need is someone that can shout your name from the roofs and not be ashamed to do it. Having said that, though, once you already have that, that's not the end. I did a lot of work in prepping my recommenders. What I did was create something called a recommendation pack. I wrote all my achievements, like that based on when we had worked together, things that I had done to remind them, like, oh, by the way, it's not like you say you forgot. I did this. So I created that. It's like a document that outlined all the things I achieved while I was working with them. I also gave them everything I had for my HBS application, so they could read my essay and see, oh, this is what direction she's going with her essay. Okay. And also, you know, basically help them. Like, like these are busy individuals. If you're talking to senior people, they don't have time to start doing storytelling about your life. Like, give them everything they need. If it's just, you know, crafting a little template, you know, to send to them to, you know, I'm just trying to say this is such an important part of your application. You should not just leave it to chance. Make sure you give them everything they need to create a great recommendation for you. So don't leave it to chance. It doesn't have to be an HBS alum. I agree with everything Bodun said. Like, really get them to write great stories about you.
Okay,
the last thing I'll add is, if you're working in a big organization, say like the consulting or like what is called banking organizations, where you have a lot of people who are trying to apply, and sometimes a lot of people under the same manager who are trying to apply. One word of caution is make sure your recommender is not recommending for nobody else. I've heard of stories where recommenders like recommend 2-3 people, and HBS calls them up and says, if you only have one spot and you have to pick one person, who will you pick? And so you're putting that person in an awkward position. And just like Dami said, you're leaving it to chance that it might be you. So make sure like it's your cheerleader, and that cheerleader has signed or has accepted fate that is only cheerleading you for this school for this year. That's all I'll say.
Okay, thank you. Like, you literally, it's my other question, which is about aligning with your recommender and making sure the story the person wants to tell about you and your story are sort of aligned. So thank you so much for that response. So moving on to the big one, funding. We got lots and lots of questions around funding, right? So I know there's the HBS need-based scholarship. Other ones I'm aware of is the 7-Up scholarship, TY Danjuma, Olam, and some other summer fellowships. So basically, do you mind sharing what the HBS need scholarship, like what do you have to do to get it? I know they say it's need-based, so do you have to do something, or you just have to be needy to get it, right? And then do you submit another application for it, or just your MBA application covers?
Yeah, so the good thing about, I don't know if it's good, Sha, but if you're Nigerian and working in Nigeria, any Naira, you are most likely going to get need-based scholarship. So that's good news for anybody who does get in. I mean, unless you're like boxed up and you're doing well anyway. But for the application, once you get in, they send you like a ton of, like, for the financial aid application, you have to send a lot of proof of what you're earning, all that stuff, what's in your bank account. So you have to actually show that you don't have money and things like that. So I think the relatively straightforward process is not rocket science. They do ask for a ton of information, but once that's done, they calculate how much they can give you. And I would say they can be pretty generous. I got need-based about 50% of my cost of going to HBS, which was great. The other, 7-Up, I didn't get. I did apply, I didn't get. TY Danjuma, I don't even know how that works. I didn't get it either. So I didn't get any of the other fellowship things. In fact, I have no idea who got any of those things. Bodrum, I know that. But for the balance, I know this is so scary to people. Nigerians don't like debt. In fact, my mother, when I told her I was going to get student loan, she was like, hey, how are you going to carry loan $100,000? It's scary. So listen, I understand. I was very nervous about taking on student loans, but the good thing is if you do go to a great school like HBS, you have access to these like resources. So I got a pretty decently priced student loan around like sub 6%. And if you get a good job and stay in the US and earn dollars, like it's actually easy to get your loans repaid. So what I would advise, if you're planning to go back to Nigeria and earn Naira again and struggle a bit, it might be tough, but there are like some repayment programs they help people with who move back to Africa. But let's just say the most important thing is getting to HBS. You can really figure everything out after. Loans are not the scariest of things. Right now, me and Bodri are now in that process of figuring out how to pay back our student loans, but there are a lot of resources to help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Echoing what Dami said. I think, first off, if you are going to business school and you are adverse to loans, like you don't want to take loans at all, I think, and your parents are not wealthy to pay, or you are not wealthy to pay the money, I think you should just stop. Like, don't waste your time trying to apply. Don't waste your time trying to like fill out the application and everything if you don't want to take loans. The reason I say this is because number one, I've not heard of any program that gives you like the full right to scholarship, for the MBA, except 7-Up. And 7-Up is one person a year. And think about like how many Nigerians get into HBS every year. In our year, I think we're like 13 or so. So 13 of us fought over it, and one person got it. Uluma, she's my next door neighbor, or she was my next door neighbor. I was so happy for her. But that's it, one. So if you're banking on that, chances that you get it is not that high. And so like you have to be prepared for that. Two is also like if you're coming to business school and you don't know about like sort of like the advantages of debt and in like fostering financial prosperity, I'm not sure if maybe business school is the right way. Maybe you come and learn in business school, but like sometimes debt can be good. All right. That said, the reason why I say that is because like in one way or the other, you have to take loans. And so I think like everyone should be comfortable with that. Don't think about like the loans that will be high, like Nigerian banks that will be quoting 30% or something like that. Like you get like very good, okay loans. As a matter of fact, when I calculated the loans, someone who was even returning to Nigeria will be able to pay off those loans. This was before the recent devaluation. And so, like, if you're planning to return to Nigeria, just be praying that for the duration of your loan, Nigeria does not devalue the naira, which is highly unlikely, but that's another issue. Okay, now to how do you pay for your MBA? Like Dami said, there's the HBS need-based finance. You just have to be needy to show it. I mean, I've heard of a lot of people who've gotten like 50, 55% off. When I applied to, I got 50% off then, but I'll see. But anyways, that story for another day. 50% off. So all you have left to look for is $100,000. Two is there are a number of other scholarship like funds or money around that you can search for. So an example is T.Y. Danjuma. T.Y. Danjuma, I think I got T.Y. Danjuma. I got like $10,000 from T.Y. Danjuma to supplement my living expenses. T.Y. Danjuma used to give a few people a lot of money, but now they've switched towards giving a lot of people some small amount of money. As small as $10,000, but $10,000 goes a long way. $10,000 can help you with living for a whole year. So that is good. And so that given that they give a lot of Africans, it's open to all Africans in top 10 business school, you have a high chance of getting it. So if you apply. And then Olam, I think, has discontinued their scholarship, but there are other things that you can look out for out there. Oh, if you're from Niger Delta, there's the Niger Delta scholarship. A friend of mine who went to Yale got like a Niger Delta scholarship for $50,000. When I heard it, I was crying. I was like, I wish I had known, and maybe I was from Niger Delta, or maybe Ogun State has done something similar. But I think the thing here is you just have to be on the lookout, like, and put your ears to the ground. There are a lot of these Nigerian scholarships that go unheard of. Like, and only few people apply, and which means like you have a higher rate of getting. So you have to like really search and look for these things as well. And so that's financial aid, that's scholarship. And the last part is loans. The truth about the matter is, at one point or the other, you have to take loans. Loans can be good, especially if you're staying in the US. You can use it as tax deductions and things like that. So you learn all about that in business school. But they give like a very good rate. I think there are a number of options that you can easily get loans without too much stress, without collateral. Harvard Credit Union, Harvard has a bank. If you don't know, yes, Harvard is big like that. They have a whole bank. They will give you loans like quite easy and everything. They've also done partnership with some other banks like Discovery Bank. So I got some loans from Discovery Bank. And like, I'll tell you something that is interesting. I graduated and Discovery sent me a check for graduation. The people I borrowed money from. I didn't even ask questions. I'm just like, thank you, please deposit it in my account. But yeah, there are other financial institutions. And then I think your last resort should be Protege. Their rates are just too high. That's why I think personally. But there's also Protege who will also give anybody loans, student loans. But I think that's how people typically finance MBAs. Now, if you're thinking about how to pay back, repayment period, I've heard all sorts. But like on average, I've had people pay back all the loans in 3-4 years. So I'm paying the full cost of my MBA, and looking at my projection, I'm hoping to pay everything down in 4 years. And so, like, even if you're paying $250K, in 4 years, you should be able to pay it down comfortably. That's if and only if you're earning in dollars and you're staying like you're earning in dollars and not somewhere that is likely to be exposed to devaluation. End of story.
Nice. So guys, student loans is not the end of the world. Be very, very open to it. It's not bad, especially if you're going to stay back in the US. It's something that is possible. It's something a lot of people do if you do not get the 7-up scholarship. So about rounding up, so now is about the experience itself, your HBS experience. So how was it? I was relocating from Nigeria to the US, and I mean, everybody were in covenant. How is the teaching style? How is the HBS case? The method? How are the professors? Are you guys always chilling every weekend and going to the beach, or it was like crazy studying? Like, how was the whole experience of HBS? Moving from, I've been working for 4 years to going back to sit down in the class. How was the experience like for you?
Me, I can go first. I don't know about Dami. You know, Dami is a smart girl, sharp girl. You know, her mom's prayer like this is working, sharp. Dami, please, I need to meet your mom again, so that she will add me to her family.
No worry, I'm on it. I got you.
But yeah, I think transition to school is it's an upward curve in the sense that you have to sort of like unlearn different things and move towards like this phase of actively like reading for class. Like it's not like you're going to work, right? Like that you can do the work, sleep, and then wake up again and continue doing the work. In school, you have to actually like read for the class. And HBS curriculum is the case-based method, which means that you come into class like you are learning from yourself. It's not like the professor is really teaching you anything. The professor is mostly there to moderate the discussion and correct the discussion when the discussion goes wrong. And so like you're the one teaching yourself. And so there's that steep curve there. But I think after that, the way the cycle works is you get into the system, you're trying to learn how to read cases and like talk in class. When you're starting to feel comfortable, then HBS throws you another curveball, which is called recruiting, because then that one starts, you have to add it to it. But to be honest, the truth is like you will survive. You will go through it and you will be better off. And after a while, it will be sort of like auto cruise for you. And then you'll be able to like enjoy more of what business school has to offer, which is more than the classroom experience, right? Like connecting with friends outside of the classroom, networking, meeting different CEOs or different interesting personalities in the business area. And also, let's not forget about it, like the different treks and trips. Those are like one of the most fun memories or highlights of my HBS experience. Guys, I was in China, it was amazing. Japan, Vietnam, it was just like so good, like have this opportunity to travel around the world with classmates, learn more about the global system. I think that's it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And in terms of like, okay, travel, we have to talk about that. I mean, business school is very famous for travel, but I think just the opportunities, like every weekend, there's some trip you're going to around the world. I did a 5-day trek to Machu Picchu with my friends. I mean, just things that you've never done before, you get exposure to that. But from an academic standpoint, I would say it was very rigorous for me. But you didn't talk about nice staying up, reading cases, Venn models. Like it can be pretty rigorous because when you're in the classroom, there's a lot of pressure to add value to the conversation, right? And keep up with the conversation and make sure that you're given to the classroom experience. So I think I took it way too seriously in my first semester. I spent a lot of time studying, a lot of time getting ready for cases. But you get used to it. That transition, it takes a while for every single person. The truth is that everybody that you see around you is going through the same transition. So it feels like a very supportive experience. We haven't talked about the section experience because it hasn't come up yet, but you are put into sections, 9 sections, or is it 10 sections? I can't remember. 10 sections of people, and these are people that, at least for the first year, you're doing everything with. So it's a very supportive environment, but it is tough to make that transition and get to meet all these people from around the world that have very different backgrounds as you. But the beauty is in finding things that you have in similar with them. But it gets better. After your first semester, you really start to pick things up. Like it becomes so much more fun. I traveled a lot. I partied hard. I have a partner here, so it was great for the both of us to be here in Cambridge. But it's hard for everybody those first couple of months, but then it gets easy. You really enjoy the experience as it goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about it. Like, don't forget, like a lot of people coming to HBS are like really, really smart people. I remember one night we had gone out to party. And it felt like no one read for class the next day. And I showed up to class with my drunk self, like trying to recover from hangover. And the professor asked the question and all hands went up. And I was like, wait, were we not all drinking yesterday? How come you all recovered from this alcohol? When did you get that degree?
Yeah.
But that's just to say, like, I mean, HBS is going to be a fun experience, but at the same time, it's also going to be like academically rigorous. And that's why they check like undergraduate transcript, your GMATs to say like, can you handle the academic rigor? With time, you'll move on. You'll get through it. Someone asked if my McKinsey experience helped during my MBA. I mean, all experiences you get before MBA helps. Some of the things that I liked that helped me from my consulting experience was the ability to like quickly read document real quick, like get the key points and know like how to like compose your message, even though you don't even know anything about the whole thing. Just like say something that like sound smart and like shut up. Like those things like really helped me. Things that like how to synthesize people's arguments and like move the conversation forward. Like there are different things that will help you. And my own personal experience of like working in different industries, they will also help you. And so like if you come from a finance background and we're in a finance class or we're discussing a finance case, like you definitely feel more comfortable in that region. If you're working in marketing, you definitely feel comfortable. So like it all helps.
Awesome. And for our final question for today, considering how technology has been affecting our world, especially in this COVID and post-COVID period, we see Zoom classes, Zoom meetings, everything is seeming to tilt towards online, right? So do you think the MBA investment is still a good one? I mean, I can imagine people resuming in September, and if they have to do classes online, this whole party, the whole experience, do you think you will still get the full experience? And would the MBA still be a good investment?
First of all, no chance. Don't pay $200,000 to do HBS online. Like, just don't. It makes zero sense. So, I mean, this is a debate that HBS itself, even pre-COVID, has been having. Like, does it, like, online MBA degrees, is it a threat to our model, blah, blah, blah?
All of that.
I don't think, this is tough. Okay, what I will say, for top MBA programs like Harvard or Stanford, yes, it's still worth getting their, because for the brand purpose, like it's still worth getting their degree, but it is not worth $200,000. So if it's going to be online. So that's why I don't know what the future will be. COVID-19 is ever evolving. Who knows what is going to happen? We might all be dead next year, God forbid. But if you have to do your MBA and it's all going to be online, please don't. It's not even worth it, even if it's Harvard, to pay $200,000 to do that, because the experience, the people you meet, the relationships you create, the fun experiences, the trips, the travel, the treks, the fireside chats, like there's just so much that happens that makes the experience so rich and fun that you simply cannot get online. So it's tough. It's tough for me to say that makes sense. $200,000 for an MBA that's going to be online.
I think to answer that question, I think it's a personal question, and here's why I think it's a personal question. I think the answer, or like to answer that question, you need to first ask yourself, what are you paying $200,000 for? Right? If you're paying $200,000 for the brand, then it's still a worth. If you believe that what you're going to MBA for is getting the brand, then you can make an argument that paying $200,000 for watching it online still makes sense. If you believe that you are paying it to learn, now you have to ask yourself, like, are you learning the same as you would in the classroom or online? So that's why I think it's a personal question. For me, I paid $200,000 not just for the brand, but for like the in-classroom experience, getting to know my classmates, that connection I built with them, right? Like exploring the world with my classmates, like learning more about the world. Like those are the things that you can never do online. And so that's why I would never pay $200,000 to do it online. And so that's why I think it's a personal question that you have to fundamentally ask yourself, like, what is this $200,000 going for? And I think that's how you can best answer it.
Okay, I can see a quick question in the chat, and it says, do you fund the business trips, or is it inclusive of the tuition? So
that would be nice. So we should give them that recommendation. Please pay for our trips. Nah, everything is all your money. So which is why it's interesting, because even the people who get 100% scholarship or whatever, you still have to like get money to go on trips. So, and it's a huge budget. Some people spend up to $50,000 in the 2 years on different trips and travel. It's a lot of money. So it's self-funded. Nobody gives you money for that.
It's self-funded. There's only one trip, only one that HBS pays for, just one. And that one is part of the curriculum. I don't know if people have heard about it. It's called field immersion. So essentially what it means is they've taught us all these things in class. Now, at the end of year one, they want you to sort of like go and replicate it in the field to solidify your learnings for like a week. And so HBS pays for you to travel to different places in the world. They'll recommend that you go somewhere you've never been. HBS will put you up in a hotel, you and somebody else in the hotel room, like what is called 2 people per room. Like they'll pay for your flight, they'll pay for your accommodation and feeding and things like that. So it's a great, remarkable experience. That's the only.
But they didn't even have it this year, so.
Yeah, sadly because of COVID, they didn't have it this year.
Yeah.
It was one of the highlights of my year.
It really was. It was fun.
Okay. Can you get loans for the travel? So can you get it as part of the package, or you have to have like personal savings for that?
So it's a mix. So when you get student loans, they actually account for this extracurricular activity. So your student loans actually you should budget that into the loan you're getting, the loan amount you apply for. And also your personal savings, or if people are, dashing you money, that's nice to do this trip. So it's a mix. You can definitely get a loan for that.
Yeah, you get loans. It's already somewhat like a reasonable average amount is budgeted into like the loan amount. But then again, if you want to travel more, then you have to like go get more loans or like tap into your savings if you have one and things like that.
Okay. Another question. How about working during the MBA? So can you work and also, that seems obvious, but because of all the rigorous experiences you just talked about, well, is it possible to kind of do?
It's not impossible, but it's difficult. So here are the hurdles that you stumble across. One, if you're a Nigerian, it means you will probably be on F1 visa. And with the F1 visa, you're not allowed to work, especially for your first year in school. So that means the answer is just no, except if you can find like an online gig that you're doing at home and things like that. Two, the second hurdle you face is just what is it called? The context is just rigorous, that you almost have no time to like find additional work. But if you can, good props to you. And then you do your summer internship. From the second year, you can then start taking up like sort of like quote unquote work that you can do like some on campus or around. And I think the government limits it to like some number of hours per week or something like that. But also what you should take note of is some of these hours like cuts into your OPT, which is sort of like the visa you get after school to work in the US for 1 year. And so if you've been working during your second year, you will not get 1 year after school. So you might get 10 months. So again, it's all about like, do you want to work now and not work later or things like that? But that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I agree. You can work. I know some people who had jobs. Some of my friends had jobs around the Harvard community doing like tutoring or things like that. It requires a special kind of visa if you are international. But bruh, it's hard. In fact, I actually don't recommend it. Like, it's not worth, like the amount of money you're going to earn does not justify everything, the stress and everything you're missing by doing that job. So I don't recommend it, but if you have to work, there are definitely opportunities to work.
Yes, it's not worth it. Like, you're better off just sleeping.
You're just better off chilling and resting, recovering from that hangover or something. Yeah.
The amount of pay you is not next to nothing.
Okay, so I know I've said last question, but final last question. How does the HBS consider demographics in admitting candidates? I mean, is there anything like a quota for Africa, Latin America, etc.? Is there something like that?
That is a question for admissions.
Yeah, I think that you should talk to admissions, because we truly don't know, and it's hard to get a sense of that. And I would be very surprised if they did have quotas. That's just inappropriate. But what I do know is that they want African students in those seats. I'm gonna tell you that, like, they definitely are doing a significant push towards getting more African students into HBS. So whoever, I know someone asked that question of, someone he's about to give up applying because the process seems very difficult. I would say stick it out, stay strong. The school really wants your perspective in the classroom. We discount that. As Africans, we have extremely unique. We're only like 2% of the HBS class, Africans, 2%. So, you know, and our perspective is rich, it's different. We bring so much to the table. So don't be discouraged. Try and tell your story well, and you really stand a good chance if you can just get everything together.
Yeah, and to the other person asking about like difficult, like what advice? Like I mentioned earlier, there's a book that I read about getting into top business school that I'll share with admin. And so like feel free to like get a copy of the book from them, read through it. It talks about like what admission boards are looking for, and then you can apply yourself towards that.
Okay, thank you so much, Adebodun. Thank you, Dami. I'll hand over to Blessing right now.
Hi, Dami. Hi, Beado. Hi, everyone. We've come to a close on the session. Personally, I find it really, really refreshing, enlightening, and reassuring. More so, I think my confidence in my ability to get that call from Boston, it's more certain with the kind of information I've been dealt with today. So I would say thank you to our guests for coming and talk to us on their parts to HBS. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time for finding out time to come be with us. Just as a closing note on this, someone said ideas and knowledge are commodities, but what makes the difference is execution. We all know ourselves individually, and we are different phases in our lives today, so we know that next step to take to get that call from Boston. For some of us, it's just to take that GMAT. For others, it's just to, get that work experience solidified, and it depends on each and every one of us. So let's take that next step to get that call. Just as so I got logged out of the session, right? I got logged out at where it's supposed to be, so we didn't anticipate this much people, but we got more than we could have. So going forward, we're going to we have like other social media platform, and we plan to stream live on subsequent sessions. So follow us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So that's that. And also, just to hint you guys on what we have in stock for you guys, this series is going to cover the top 10 business school based on FT ranking. So be on the lookout. And from us, the Narrative Africa, we say it was nice having you around, and thank you to our guests.
Thank you so
All
much,
right.
everyone.
Thank you, guys. Good luck, everyone, with your applications. Okay.
Sure.
I just want to make a shameless plug. For a group that I'm mentoring for. If you're seriously interested in applying to business school and you need sort of like a support group and help to push you through, there's a group called Young African MBAs that are taking applications right now for a business school prep school to help. Like I was in the cohort as well. Like it was about 30 of us, and they really helped with like reviewing essays, like talking about like all these issues that we're talking about, like talking through GMAT struggle, application and everything. They take you through all the steps. Please Google them out. Young African MBAs. It's a prep school. They're taking applications now. I think that'll be good.
That was really a shameless plug, but well, yeah, with this solid group. Anyway, bye guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.